Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our 2019 Speaker Orientation webinar for this year's NAMS conference. We are very excited to have you all on the line today. Really what this webinar is for is to showcase a few of our technology items that we have that you can integrate into your presentation, as well as just give you a few reminders of some upcoming due dates and some other important information for the conference, and of course to answer any questions that you have. We'll have two ways that you can submit questions today, so everyone is muted. You can submit questions through your Zoom panel through the question and answer box on your screen, or you can send them through our conference app, which I'll show you in just a second. So before we do get started, if you can all open either your cell phone or another browser window and navigate to nams.cnf.io. This is the polling and question and answer system that we'll be demonstrating here and that we'll be using at the conference. For the conference, this integrates directly into our mobile app so that if someone is looking at the session in the app, they'll be able to go with one easy button to get right to all of the conference's I/O items for the polling and evaluations and things. Since we don't have that app active currently, you can go to this website on your browser. So just a quick rundown of the agenda. First off, again, welcome to everyone. My name is Lindsay Sullivan. For those of you who have been around for a while, that is a small change. My former last name was Flick. I got married about 2 months ago, so I'm still getting used to introducing myself as Lindsay Sullivan. I have been with NAMS for almost 5 years now, and this is my 5th conference. I lead our conference education, and I also work with the CCN and our certification programs. We also have joining me today Alex Burke, our Education and Learning Services Associate. So Alex has been with us for almost a year and was able to join us last year in Long Beach for her first conference. So she's already rounding the corner on conference number 2.
Hi everyone, my name's Alex Burke. If you have any questions leading up to the conference, you can feel free to reach out to me at speakers.nams.org. and I am available to assist with any inquiries and the speaker process.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. So our agenda for the rest of the presentation today is that we're going to review our speaker resources page, introduce a new product for 2019, social question and answer. We're going to look at the polling that we've been using for a few years at the NAMS conference. Another thing that's new for 2019 is our session moderators and check-in process. And then we'll talk about a few other logistics for on-site, including room monitors, the virtual conference, evaluations, and some basic reminders. And we did have one person who requested that we show the link for the poll questions again, so I'm just going to go back before I go forward real quick. It's nams.cnf.io. All right, so moving forward, our first item here is our speaker resources page. So those of you who have been familiar with the NAMS conference for a few years, you may have noticed that this year we rolled out a new website for just the conference. So instead of having pages embedded in nams.org, we have an entire namsconference.org website for you this year. With that, we've also moved our speaker resources page. You can now find that at the namsconference.org website, and if you hover over for attendees, it will be at the bottom of that section. This page has the important dates. It has links to the presentation template, to the quiz questions template for when you submit your quiz questions for continuing resources. There are plenty of important things that all kind of link to this page, so it's a great place to start. There are also just a few helpful tips and tricks for anyone who maybe is newer to the professional speaking world. You can get some of that information here. So one of our new items for 2019 that I am extremely excited about is a program called Social Q&A. This is built right into the Conferences IO application. So you can see on your screen, if you've got your phone or a second screen open, there is a section now in green that says Social Q&A. What this allows our attendees to do is to submit questions right from their NAMS app. We know that there are sometimes people who are a little nervous to get up and stand in front of the microphone to ask their question out loud. And we all know that sometimes there are people who, when they get on that microphone, they don't stop talking for a minute and a half. And in a 90-minute session, that takes up quite a bit of your time. So by funneling some of our Q&A through the app, we'll be able to keep things a little bit more succinct and moving forward. The other good thing about this is that other attendees can also see the list of questions and can upvote questions that they like. For example, I see a question here that's come in asking, what is the due date for submitting my presentation? If I think that that's an important question that I would like to have answered, I can tap the little arrow next to the question. So then the questions that are upvoted the most will come up like that in the list. These questions will be asked by our session moderators, which we'll get into that a little bit more later in the presentation. But basically, it gives us a list of questions, and we know which ones are important because other attendees have upvoted them. We always tell people, don't be shy to ask a question. There's probably someone else in the audience who has the same question as you. This is an easy way for us to validate that. For example, right now, I see that there are 5 upvotes on the question about submitting the presentation. So that you guys know, the due date for submitting your presentations is September 6th, and we'll review that again later. So as we're going through this presentation, if you have any questions, again, you can feel free to submit them directly through the Zoom webinar platform, or you can try out the Social Q&A button and you can ask them right in the app. This process we're going to have as an opt-in this year. As you were completing your speaker agreements, you may have noticed there's a question there that said, would you like to use polling and questions? And you could respond that you weren't sure, or maybe that you wanted to use one or the other. We're going to again, do this as an opt-in this year. In future years, pending that it goes well this year, it'll probably be more for everyone. But we'll be letting attendees know when they come into a session that the social Q&A will be active for this session so that they can know what to expect. All right, so now we're also going to take a look at our live audience polling. So when you're looking at either your phone or your secondary browser window right now, you probably see a couple different buttons. You see the social Q&A, you see a big evaluate this session button, and then you see something that says polls have been created but none are currently unlocked. The way that this system works automatically integrates with PowerPoint, so you don't need to worry about doing anything really different than what you would already be doing while you're giving your presentation. So it makes it very easy for the presenters. In the conference, this will be integrated directly into the mobile app again, so it makes it a seamless transition for attendees. As an example, our first question is going to be, have you previously spoken at a NAMS conference? So right now, if you look at your phone or your secondary browser, you don't see the question. As soon as I click my next button, it will connect me to the live content, and that question will pop up on your browser. And now you guys can see as the answers are coming in, the scores are moving. So it looks like we have almost half and half new speakers and speakers who have been with us before, which is always really exciting to see some new folks joining us. And then as soon as I click to the next slide in my presentation, that question goes away from your phone or your other browser window. That's how easy this process is. We program all of this for you. We just ask you what questions you want to ask and where they go, and then we make all of the magic happen. All you have to do is click that one extra slide to pull the content up, and everyone will be able to see the answers. So our second question, so that first question backing up just a second, was, just kind of polling the audience. We had it displayed as a pie chart. There is no correct answer for that question, just kind of a general getting some ideas of who's in the room. Our second poll question is, in what city will the 43rd Annual NAMS Educational Conference and Exhibition be held? So now, when we click to our next slide, you can see that on your phone or your browser, you've got potential answers. So I see it looks like 100% of people have picked the correct city, which shows up here in green. Just so that you guys can see what it looks like, I'm going to pick the wrong answer. I picked Portland, but that's not correct. So our correct answer always shows up in green. The good thing about using a question like this is if you want to try to quiz the audience where there is something that's a correct answer, that's something that you are able to do. And this one, in comparison to our last question, is a bar chart versus the pie chart. So you have two kind of different visual ways of showing number-based questions. Sorry about that. Next up is, in one word, describe how you're feeling about this year's NAMS conference. Ooh, jubilant. That is a great word, whoever put that one in. So this question is put together to be a word cloud. What this does is every time that someone types in a word, it will be added to the cloud. Now, as you're looking at this, you see awesome, happy, and jubilant all as one size, and excited is huge in comparison. What the program does is it takes ones that come in from multiple people and it makes those more prominent in your word cloud. So we can see that awesome, great, happy, jubilant, all the same size. Maybe one or two people put those in, and excited is so much larger. That's indicative that probably 5 or 10 people all typed in excited. And so that's why you're seeing this so much larger than everything else. So if you're interested in utilizing the live polling in your session, there are a couple things that we'll be asking you to do for when you submit your presentation. We'll ask you to go ahead and submit a placeholder slide in your presentation that tells us what you want in that. So your poll type, is it multiple choice? Is it open-ended? Is it a numerical average? We'll take a look at that one towards the end. Your response type, is it like our questions that we looked at where you're asking them to select just one? Can they check all that apply? And how do you want your results to be shown? Would you like the pie chart or bar chart if it's something that's a number? If you're doing words, you can do a word cloud. You could do a list as well. And then visibility is kind of our last variable. The options there are that the audience can or cannot see the results on their phone. So for example, if you're asking someone to pick a correct answer, you may not want them to be able to see what other people are typing in until they give their answer. So that's the kind of information that we need in order to build this out for you. And then we just ask that when you are submitting your PowerPoint for that September 6th due date, that you just let us know that there are polls in there so that we are putting that kind of in our queue to build those out for you. And then again, kind of as I mentioned as I was clicking through, the polls will automatically unlock while you scroll through the presentation. There's no additional button that you have to click or anything like that. So a couple questions that have come in on the social Q&A, just want to get back to those. Will we have access to these slides or do I have to take notes? You will have access to these slides. This entire presentation is also being recorded, so that recording will be available as well. And then another question is, what is the ideal number of poll questions? I have seen anything from 1 or 2 up to I think the most we've ever seen in one session was probably 8 to 10. I definitely wouldn't want to go any longer than that, and any more than that. I would say probably somewhere around 5 is the sweet spot, just because in our sessions, which are 90 or even potentially 45 minutes, we have some of those shorter sessions this year to try out some new learning styles. Each of these polls realistically takes about a minute to get through until you open up that live polling slide. You allow people to read the question. You allow them to input their answer. You give them, 20 to 30 seconds for everyone to get that process done, and then to discuss the answers. That's why my thought is that probably around 5 or so is kind of the sweet spot, because if you get too many more, then people are only focusing on that and not the remainder of your presentation. All right, so if there are any other questions on polling or anything else, feel free to submit them, but we will keep moving. Session moderators. So this is a little bit different than it was in the past. Previously, we would have someone do the session introduction, which would be a board or a conference committee member. They would pretty much just do the session introduction, read the speaker bios. This year, their job is going to be a little bit more involved. They're still going to do the introduction piece that they've always done. They'll be reminding attendees to silence their cell phones and to ask questions into the microphone or to the social Q&A if it's being used in your session. They'll remind the attendees to have their app available, and they'll let the attendees know what to expect to see in the app. So if you're using polls, if you're using social Q&A, the session introduction will specifically mention those items. All evaluations are done through the app, so the session moderator will remind people to do that. They'll also introduce the speaker bios, and they'll announce the session check-in code. This is something that's new for this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in just a moment. And then the other big item that the session moderators will do is that they'll serve as the moderator for the social Q&A. Since this is the first year that we're doing this, we don't want you all as speakers to have to juggle looking at these questions as well. So our board or conference committee member who's serving as the session moderator will be reviewing the questions and will be the one to ask them to you guys based on which ones are the highest upvoted when we get to the question portion of your presentation. So session check-ins that I just mentioned, this year we are going completely paperless for our CE forms. This is something that we've been working to for a couple of years now. For those of you who were at last year's conference, you may remember we had a form that was integrated into the mobile app, but it was still a little bit separate. This year, our partner, Conferences.io, that we've been using for polling and these other items and evaluations for the past few years, has rolled out a new portion to their program, which allows for session check-ins. In order to get CEs, attendees will be checking into sessions with a code. So every session will have its own individual code. Because we don't have this feature active yet on our account, it won't be active until closer to the conference. I'm not able to really show you guys this, but you can see the screenshot here on my screen. Basically, all the people will have to do, all of our attendees, the only thing they'll need to do is put in their email address, their first name, their last name, and the code. And once they check in, the system records that they were there, and after the conference, they'll receive a certificate via email with all of their CE credits listed that they'll then use for their recertification. For that code, how we're going to do that is, one, the session moderator is going to announce it, and two, we as staff are going to add a slide to each of your presentations that includes the session check-in code. So while the moderator is reading your bios and doing the introduction, we'll pull that slide up on the screen so that everyone can see it and hear it from the moderator to make sure that they get themselves checked in. We know that it'll probably be a little bit of a growing year, with this being our first time that we're using this program, but with our moderators being educated on it, as well as all of the staff and all of our room monitors, I really think that the rollout will go pretty seamlessly. I'm very excited to make this process completely paperless and kind of have it all rolled in here. So room monitors was another role that I just mentioned. Our room monitors are volunteer positions just for the conference. They're primarily from the state association, although we often do open it up to others who are interested in volunteering. They will help with the CEU capture in case anyone has questions about how to use the app, how to put in the check-in code. All of our room monitors will be educated on that process. They will help with getting people into the room and helping them to find seats. They'll also have a list of frequently asked questions so that they can help address those sorts of things for attendees. And they're really kind of our first line of defense for any issues. Alex and I will be running around to all 5 of the rooms, but obviously there are 2 of us and there are 5 rooms happening at one time. So our room monitors are really that first line of defense. They all have our cell phone numbers. They can call and text us if anything does go wrong, but they're there to help us out in that way. They will also hold up time cards for the speakers to let you know when you've got 15 minutes to go to the end of the presentation, and then they'll count you down in 5-minute increments from that. So they'll have a 15, a 10, a 5, and a time is up. Just to help keep you on track to ensure that we've got some time for Q&A at the end of the session, and just so that you know where you're at in time. The virtual conference, so at this point, virtual conference sessions have not been selected. So if you haven't heard anything about it, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be tapped for it. It's something the conference committee is actually talking about in our monthly meeting tomorrow. So all of the virtual conference sessions happen in the same room. One big thing that we ask for that, if you do get asked to be included for the virtual conference, is that we don't have group activities in those sessions. It becomes very difficult for the in-person crowd and the virtual crowd to be integrated. So that being said, if you were assigned to a roundtable style presentation room, you will not be selected for the virtual conference. Those will all be in a separate space. So if when you got your acceptance, you noted that it was a roundtable room, you definitely will not be tapped for virtual conference. We also ask that virtual presenters stay on the stage and don't kind of get down and walk around with the audience. Just makes the video portion of that much more difficult. The virtual conference is both video and slides. So it really gives a bit more of a feel of being there to our virtual audience. And then those who are watching from home are able to submit questions. Those are moderated by NAM's staff and are kind of worked into the question and answer period along with questions from the live audience. Evaluations. Again, our evaluations are all digital. We have been all digital on evaluations for a few years now. The evaluations will automatically unlock in the app 15 minutes prior to the end of your session. You'll note that when you first logged into this session, the button was already active. We set this one up that way, but for the conference, they'll unlock 15 minutes prior to the end of the session. And then we do provide all of our evaluation data to speakers by the end of the year. That just gives you the chance to look through what the attendees were thinking, especially if you're interested in submitting an abstract towards the following conference or have just things that you're looking to improve. And now we have our final poll example. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for the NAMS conference in Philadelphia? Now I know that a lot of you already responded as excited on the first question. So you can all see right now the numeric average kind of fluctuating as people are putting in responses. So right now we're at a 9.3, super exciting. I'm going to put that I'm not super excited for this, just so you guys can see how that average will go down. So I put in a 4, it brought us down to an 8.6. So this is another style of question that you can use to build into your presentation. One way that I've seen this style of question used well that I thought worked out nicely is to do a pre and a post question in your session. So maybe at the beginning of the session, ask the attendees' comfort level with the subject matter or with a particular point that you're going to be talking about, and ask that at the beginning. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with this topic? And see where your answer is at the beginning, and then bring back that same style of question at the end so that you can see what that difference looks like after someone has attended your session and how much more comfortable they feel with the topic by the end. So just a few reminders. PowerPoints, handouts, and quiz questions are all due on September 6th. The reason that we have that due date so far in advance of the conference is that we do have every presentation reviewed by a member of the conference committee. So they do that through the first few weeks of September, and if there are any suggestions that a conference committee member has for you, they'll reach out in those couple of weeks, and then we have everything finalized by about the third or fourth week of September. And we then upload all of the handouts and things to the NAMS website so that attendees can print out handouts before they get on site. We all know no one likes to pay the prices at a hotel business office or a FedEx office near the hotel. So people do like to get those handouts printed ahead of time, so we send those out. And then just as a reminder, the full conference dates are October 19th through the 23rd. All speakers will be invited to our President's Reception on Monday evening, which is October 21st. So be on the lookout for additional information for that. If you have not yet had a chance to register for the conference, that is available. When you complete your speaker agreement, you should have received an automatic email reply with all of your responses, and that also includes your complimentary code to register for the conference. And then our stipends are processed approximately 4 to 6 weeks after the conference. Due to the conference being a little bit later this year, I don't want to promise exactly 4 weeks because we do have the Thanksgiving holiday kind of right at the end of that 4-week period of time. So it'll be about 4 to 6 weeks since our accounting department does need to do those in a large batch. So just as a heads up, but you will have those by the end of the year. All right, so last slide is if there are any questions, which I've got a few coming in. So one from our social Q&A on the app, will the questions be able to be viewed on the screen or only on the personal device? So we do have the option to kind of do that how you want it to be. They'll always be visible up on the screen in front of everyone, like integrated into your PowerPoint, but you can choose whether or not you want the questions to be viewed on the personal device. So if it is those ones where you're doing more of a quiz or a knowledge check and you want someone to have, you want them to be answering a correct question or the correct answer, and you don't want them to be able to kind of cheat off of their neighbor once people put in their answers, we can set it so that they can't see the responses on their personal device. Another question that came in through the webinar platform is asking if handouts can be provided to attendees in Microsoft Word format so that if we include forms, they can easily reuse them. You know, that is not something that we've done before, but I definitely understand the question, and I think that that's a good point. Typically with our handouts, we take your presentation and we print that, or we put that into a PDF with the kind of three slides and then areas for taking notes, and then we attach the remainder of any forms or white papers or anything like that that you'd like to include into that one mass PDF. However, if you have something that is a form that you want people to be able to maybe make edits to and utilize, I don't see a problem with us providing that to attendees in Microsoft Word format. We would just ask that you let us know that that's how you want it to be given to the attendees. Otherwise, we're probably going to put it into a PDF so that they can't make any changes to it. But if you want something to be released to them in Microsoft Word format, I'm perfectly okay with that. Just let us know. Another question, do you want speakers in the rooms 30 minutes in advance of their presentations? I would say somewhere in the 20 to 30 minutes in advance range would be fantastic. For some of our sessions, we do only have the 30 minutes in between sessions. So it does take us a few minutes to finalize the recordings of the previous sessions and get everything set up for the next session. But as long as the speakers are there, you know, at least 20 minutes ahead of time, that's always great. That gives us a chance to get you connected with the session moderator so that you know who to look for the introduction and for the social Q&A if you're utilizing that program. And we often like to have the room monitors introduce themselves as well. And then that just gives us all the peace of mind that all of the technology is working properly, that you guys are there, that there's nothing that we can help out with. So I would say if you're there 30 minutes ahead, that's amazing. Ideally, no less than 15 to 20 minutes ahead of the session start time. Any other questions from any of our attendees for today? And if you do think of any other questions after this, absolutely don't hesitate at all to send us an email to speakers@nams.org, to give us a call. We're always happy to answer any questions that you might have. We will be sending out the slides from this PowerPoint presentation, as well as making the recording available. It'll take us a couple of days to get that processed and kind of packaged to be ready to go. But you will have both of those resources to help you out as you finish putting together your presentation. At this point, I don't see any new questions either on social Q&A or through the Zoom platform. So I am going to go ahead and close out our webinar. But thank you all again so much for taking some time out of your day to join us. And we really look forward to putting on a fantastic presentation, and couldn't do it without all of you you know, taking time to be our speakers. So looking forward to a great conference in Philadelphia, and we will see you all soon. Thanks. Have a great day.